Sorry about that. 6 o'clock in the morning. Bloody hell. I wasn't planning to stay up for this fight. I was planning to watch it first thing in the morning, but I was up. I watched it. What did you guys think of that fight? And what did you guys think of the finish for the fight? As a few people in the chat are saying, a lot of people are saying they thought that was fixed. To me, that wasn't fixed at all, but this is going to be a very, very difficult video for me to make. It's not really a video that I wanted to make because I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for saying what I'm going to say here, because boxing fans are really, really good at making up narratives, don't they? Like, no offense, no disrespect, but you get a lot of people that don't know anything about the sport of boxing making up narratives, and you get certain narratives around fighters, right? The Usyks and the Crawfords of this world, right? And a lot of casual fans think that these Usyks and Crawfords are undefeatable, slick boxers who can't be touched, right? And I've been seeing it in Terence Crawford's fights for a while now. I think Terence Crawford is obviously an elite fighter. Definitely think he's one of the top 2 welterweights in the world. But I think that Terence Crawford's best assets are his athleticism. I've never seen Terence Crawford as a master boxer. That's just me. I've never seen Terence Crawford as someone who's slick, as someone who's exceptionally hard to hit. I think Terence Crawford's keys are his athleticism. He's incredibly quick. He's incredibly physically gifted, and he hits incredibly hard for his size. So I think, the best of Terence Crawford comes from his physical attributes, right? But when people start, trying to make him out to be this untouchable master boxer, they're trying to make him out to be this unsolvable puzzle, right? And I look at how he actually fights in the ring, and I'm not talking about just tonight's fights. I look at how he lost rounds. He lost rounds against, Benavidez Jr., the guy who was shot in the knee and basically took the fight with one leg. Lost rounds to him. In my opinion, like I said before, listen, Terence Crawford is levels above Kell Brook at this stage in Kell Brook's career. Me personally, I thought Kell Brook took 2 out of them first 3 rounds, right? And personally, I had Shawn Porter probably up in the fight just until the stoppage. A lot of people had Shawn Porter up in the fight. We've got the cards here, actually, in just a second. We've got tonight's cards, which we'll go through in a second. Very, very interesting reading. But listen, it was a close fight either way. But let me just start off by saying, look, there's a lot of this narrative going around that there's no way to strategize how to beat Terence Crawford. He's this undefeatable, unhittable, slick boxer who can't be touched. And we had a very, very similar narrative around Alexander Usyk until a few people wised up at the last minute. I'm telling you now, Terence Crawford is a quality boxer, one of the very, very best. I think Errol Spence watching that tonight will think I can beat Terence Crawford 100%. Very, very disappointed in the ESPN coverage. Guys, if you can hit the like button, obviously we're not really in UK time in a minute. We're during American time, so I'm going to need all the likes I can get, yeah? Especially as I'm doing this at 6:30 in the morning. So if you can hit the like button, I'd be appreciated. But ESPN's coverage, let me say first and foremost, I think is absolutely disgusting, and I'll tell you why, okay? Whether you think this is an excuse or whether you think this is correct or not, right? Kenny Porter has come out and stated the reason, and it's on this tweet here, supplied by Michael Benson, right? Kenny Porter explained to, I think, Bernardo Osasuna in the post-fight interview that the reason why he stopped the fight was because Shawn Porter did not prepare properly. That's what they said. They said Shawn Porter didn't prepare properly for the fight, and I didn't want him to basically take any unnecessary punishment. So Kenny Porter gave the reason why he pulled Shawn Porter out of that fight. It wasn't a fix. It wasn't a betting scam. People are saying that, Kenny Porter had money on Shawn Porter in round 10 and the whole thing was a fix. The reason why was because he didn't feel that Shawn Porter was 100% in the run-up to the fight, and he didn't want to see him go out like that and take any unnecessary punishment, right? Which I don't have a problem with that. You guys, some of you may think that's an excuse. Some of you may think it wasn't an excuse. But ESPN and Mark Kriegel completely then turned around and ignored everything that Kenny Porter said in that post-fight interview and tried to shape their own narrative. Mark Kriegel said, and I quote, "This was the best Shawn Porter tonight." That's what Mark Kriegel said. After hearing Kenny Porter said, I pulled him out because he wasn't 100% going into the fight and I didn't want him to take any punishment. Mark Kriegel sitting alongside his partner in crime, Max Kellerman, who obviously got fired, by Stephen A. Smith from First Take, turned around. Mark Kriegel's turned around and saying that was the best Shawn Porter. So, like I said before, ESPN, I thought the commentary was a fucking disgrace. Andre Ward in particular. Andre Ward in particular, man. I just thought Andre Ward's commentary was fucking biased to fuck. That's my opinion. I thought ESPN as a network did themselves a very bad disservice. I think Terence Crawford is, without question, right? When you think about best finishes in the sport of boxing, like when they get guys hurt, they don't let them off the hook. Terence Crawford might very well be the best finisher in all of boxing. Anthony Joshua is an outstanding finisher. When he gets a guy hurt, yeah, you know, he very, very rarely lets them off the hook when he really, really gets a guy going. Anthony Joshua, I think he's a very good finisher. But I think Terence Crawford's right up there as one of the very, very best finishers in the sport, right? And I give him credit for that performance tonight. But in my opinion, Shawn Porter, I wouldn't say lost the fight, but he made a big, big footwork mistake, which I think the only person who picked, I don't think any of the commentators picked this up, right? So I'm going to say, and this is the only reason why I'm doing the live tonight, because there's a lot of, again, narrative going around about Porter was figured out. Crawford figured out Porter. I disagree. I think Shawn Porter could have possibly won this fight tonight, but he made a very, very bad footwork mistake. And here's the bad footwork mistake that Shawn Porter made, and then I'll get to your questions and we'll talk about Errol Spence versus Shawn Porter. The big footwork mistake that Shawn Porter made tonight, right, is that he stepped inside the lead foot of Crawford and he was lunging in from there. Shawn Porter was at his best when he was slipping to the outside of Crawford's jab. Because when you slip to the outside of Crawford's jab, you get away from Crawford's left hand. Crawford's not able to set you up with the left hand coming in. Terence Crawford's game plan tonight was a very, very simple game plan. And Terence Crawford himself said this in the post-fight interview. So again, you get these casual fans talking about Terence Crawford's a genius. He came up with some mystical game plan and figured Porter out. Terence Crawford said it in the post-fight. His game plan was all about using the reach, getting behind the jab, and he was trying to make Shawn Porter obviously fall in. And when Shawn Porter falls in, Crawford was looking to use the quicker hands to counter him. Very, very simple ABCs, 1, 2, 3s of boxing, okay? But the big problem that Terence Crawford had, and the reason why he dropped so many rounds in tonight's fight, was that Shawn Porter did a very, very good job, yeah, at making his jab ineffective. And we'll talk about how he did that. But the big mistake that Shawn Porter did, as well as he was doing, at making Terence Crawford ineffective with the jab, shutting Terence Crawford's jab down, stopping Terence Crawford's output with the jab. I think ESPN said, I think it was up to like round 7 or 8, Crawford had landed something like 21% of jabs, noticeably down on the jab. The jab was where, in my opinion, Crawford was losing that fight up to the knockout, wasn't able to establish the jab, and we'll talk about why. But the big mistake that Porter made was the angles that he was throwing himself in from. And with Crawford, Crawford was looking to set Shawn Porter up with 2 shots all night long, right? 2 shots that Crawford was looking to land all night long on Porter. The first was the counter check hook, yeah? The southpaw counter check right hook. So every time Porter tried to lunge in with the jab, you see Crawford throw the right hook and spin him around. And the second shot, and this is the one that ended the fight, yeah, was when Porter was falling in short behind the right hand. Crawford was taking a step back and trying to throw the right uppercut. And if you look at one of my tweets, I'll just get one of my tweets up to show you that when I do my my real-time commentary, right, I'm not just saying this stuff now. I say this stuff during the fights. So if I just get this up on the screen very, very quickly, because this explains it a lot better than me, right? If you look at this tweet here from me, what's interesting is that Porter is stepping inside the southpaw lead foot, and he's lunging in with the jab. Normally, you would think that's suicide against Crawford because Porter should be walking himself into a left hand. But somehow, Crawford hasn't got it off yet. And as soon as I tweeted that, Crawford threw the shot and he effectively ended the fight. But that was the big mistake from Porter. If Porter focused more on slipping to the outside of Crawford's jab, trying to get his foot on the outside of Crawford's lead foot, maybe leading in a little bit more of the left hook as well, he would have lasted longer in this fight. I'm surprised, actually, that Crawford didn't get him out of there or hit him with a big shot earlier. Because, again, watch the footage. Just watch the feet. The fight was lost with the feet. Forget the punching. The fight was lost with the feet. You'll see Crawford is stepping right inside. And, again, Crawford's got the height advantage. Crawford's got the reach advantage. And now he's got Shawn Porter stepping right inside his lead foot and he's flinging himself in. He's throwing himself in behind the jab. And when your feet are placed like that, you end up throwing yourself into a left hand. And eventually Porter got timed and he got taken out of it. But that was the mistake that Shawn Porter made. And I think if he changed up his footwork a little bit more and got those angles a little bit better, he would have definitely gone later in this fight and possibly even taken it to the cards. I think when we look at the cards in a minute, you'll probably see that, you know, it was going to be very, very difficult for Shawn Porter to get a decision anyway, as we'll see when we look at the cards. But let me know what you think about that. That's why I think the fight was lost. I don't think it's because, and again, it's going to be in a very, very unpopular video. Hit the thumbs up right now if you're listening before everybody gives it a thumbs down. If I made a video telling you Terence Crawford is some kind of sidekick Derek Okora type genius, right? I get 150 thumbs up because, you know, casuals don't really understand footwork and angles, right? All they understand is Terence Crawford's a master boxer. Shawn Porter lost that fight tonight because he kept throwing himself in at the wrong angles. Don't step inside the fucking lead. You don't step inside the lead foot like that against a guy who's got that much power, who's got a severe reach advantage, and a guy who's looking to tee you up with the left hand all night long. Clear as day. Crawford was always looking for the left uppercut counter to the body or to the head. And when you step inside the lead foot, and you throw yourself in like that, you're going to throw yourself into a left hand. And that's why I said live on the telecast, as you can see here. What's interesting is that Porter is stepping inside the southpaw lead foot and lunging in with the jab. Normally, you would think that's suicide against Crawford because he should be walking into a counter left. And he ended up walking into a counter left, and that's what ended the fight. Errol Spence, we'll see. I'm not sure Errol Spence is going to make those same mistakes, although Errol Spence does like to fall in a lot, and maybe that'll be his downfall against Shawn Porter. Davies and Dave says it was a good stoppage, no way back from that point. Make bank on another day. It's all business. Yeah, absolutely. It did turn out to be a good stoppage because, you know, like I said before, Kenny Porter, nobody knows Shawn Porter better than Kenny Porter. And, you know, if it's true that Shawn Porter wasn't 100% going into that fight, then he was absolutely right to stop it, you know. But then again, you know, you can see Shawn Porter extremely, extremely disappointed. By the way, can I say something else that really annoyed me from ESPN tonight, right? And again, I don't, you know, I would probably make Crawford the favorite to beat Spence, right? I would say 55-45. I would make Crawford the favorite to beat Spence. But to be honest, if Spence gets it right on the night, I can really see Spence winning that fight. We'll talk about why in a second, right? But ESPN trying to make out that Spence is ducking Crawford. You see this crap. They got this idiot who does the post fights, Bernardo Osasuna. He asked the worst fucking questions known to man. You know, he's sitting there after the fight interviewing Shawn Porter, and he's trying to, you know, get him to tell everybody how great Terence Crawford is, and is he the greatest fighter you ever met, and would you suck his BBC and all this crap. The way these fucking post fight interviews go on is fucking embarrassing, right? And I'm just gonna tell you right now, right? Errol Spence, the reason why Errol Spence got up and left the arena the way he did was because he thought the stoppage was a bad stoppage. And also because I think he thought Shawn Porter was up in the fight. And that's the reason. He's confirmed that on Twitter, by the way. It's nothing to do with, you know, ESPN. And like I said before, it doesn't matter who you think wins, right? Spence or Crawford. I don't care, right? What annoys me is when these stupid networks, what annoys me is when people who don't fight, or people who can't fight, and I include myself in that, yeah? People who don't fight and people who can't fight make up bullshit about fighters being scared of each other. Terence Crawford is not afraid of Errol Spence. He's begging for the fight. And Errol Spence is not afraid of Terence Crawford. These are fighting men. And ESPN need to hop off that dick. That really annoyed me with ESPN. They were showing selective footage of Errol Spence getting up and leaving the arena, and they were trying to fuck around with the footage as if Spence was petrified and left the ring. The reason why Errol Spence was upset was because he probably thought Shawn Porter was a couple of rounds away from fucking beating Crawford. I had Porter up in the fight. I don't know what fight Andre Ward was watching tonight, but it was what it was. Bump of K says Spence is getting sparked out as well, mate, but respect your opinion. We'll see. I think if Spence fights the right fight, he's more than capable. He's a different type of fighter. Let me tell you something now. He's a different type of fighter. I think where the fight will be won and lost with Crawford and Spence is this. Spence is going to walk him down and Spence is going to get his shots off. There's no question about that for me. The question is, right, is Spence going to fall in on the way in? If Spence can shorten the shots on the way in, I'm not really explaining myself very well, but if Spence ends up doing what Shawn Porter did tonight, yeah, because Terence Crawford, right, is going to do. I believe he'll fight orthodox against Shawn Porter against Terence against Errol Spence. Let me just say that right now, right? I believe that it will be a big mistake for Crawford to actually go southpaw with Errol Spence. But I won't say why in this video. I'll say why later. I think it'll be a big mistake. I think Terence Crawford will fight orthodox, right, against Errol Spence. And my guess is he'll fight a very, very similar game plan tonight to what you saw against Porter, right? And to what he did against Spence, right? Crawford's going to use his reach. Crawford's going to sit there. He's going to hold out the lead hand, okay? He's going to hold out the lead hand. He's going to hold out the lead hand. He's going to try and get behind the jab, and he'll want Spence to fall in. And when Spence falls in, he's going to try and catch Spence on the way in with the right hand. That's going to be his game plan going into the fight. It's not a mystery. That'll be his game plan coming into the fight. But Spence will get into range. The question is, can Spence shorten up his punches without giving up his chin and falling in? If he gives up his chin and falls in, there's a good chance that Crawford can get him out of there. Spence is tight at the weight as well, and Spence has been hurt before in fights. Spence hasn't got, an iron chin by any stretch of the imagination. I wouldn't say Errol Spence is chinny, but he's been hurt in fights before, and he's very, very tight at the weight. And Crawford can whack. So if he gives up his chin and he lunges in and his chin comes up on the way in, then I can see Crawford getting him out of there. But if Spence can find a way to shorten the shots and not lunge in, I think he's got a good chance to beat Terence Crawford in that fight. I don't think Crawford's not an unhittable master boxer like what these casuals have been making out. All I would say is this, and I'm not trying to hate on anybody. He lost, in my opinion, lost 2 out of 3 rounds against Kell Brook, got the stoppage. He's on a different level to Kell Brook. That Jose Benavidez fight was one of the first fights where I really looked at Terence Crawford in a different light, in my opinion. Thought Jose Benavidez took too many rounds off Terence Crawford early on, but Crawford did what he did, doesn't he? Turns it around. And tonight, I thought Shawn Porter, again, Crawford did what he did. He's on another level. He's a true champion, and he proved that in the ring tonight. Like I said, I did think Porter made it a little bit easier than he should have, though, by stepping inside that lead foot and lunging into the angle he did. Absolutely terrible, in my opinion. But I think it's going to be a good fight. But these two ain't scared of each other. But it amazes me how many people are writing Spence off. It's crazy, man. How many people are writing Spence off? Spence is going to get smashed. He's got no chance. Crawford's this, Crawford's that. Man, I think these guys are in for a rude awakening, because if Spence can find a way, I believe he will get into range. It's just a question of how many is he going to take before he gets in. He will get his shots off, and he will walk Crawford down into range. And I think Crawford fighting Spence from southpaw would be a big mistake if he does that. I won't explain why, but we'll carry on. Davis and Dave says, yeah, did you see the jump shot they used? He looking slightly nervous or looking at something, and they zoomed in and then cut away when they realised he was on camera. I'm not a fan of ESPN from what I'm seeing tonight. Look, back your fighters. All the major networks do it. I mean, everybody knows DAZN and Chris Mannix are fucking awful. Back your fighters. But don't start making out that Errol Spence ran out of the arena because he's scared of Terence Crawford. That's fucking BS. That's BS. Excuse me. And that's for the birds. Slicks Boxing says Crawford far from indestructible. Same as Usyk when Canelo beats him and moves up to heavyweight after beating Makabu. You think Canelo can beat Usyk? I don't believe Canelo can beat Usyk. Usyk's got way too much for Canelo Alvarez. He's in a weird way. Usyk's the worst kind of fighter that Canelo can fight. Actually, that'd be a really bad fight for Canelo. Really, really bad fight, because Usyk's got the feet, Usyk's got the speed, Usyk's got the angles, and Canelo's not going to put a dent in him. Anthony Joshua couldn't put a dent in Canelo in Usyk. So Canelo Alvarez is not going to put a dent in Usyk. That's a bad fight if he takes that. I expect him to lose that fight if he takes that. Shevin says Timothy Bradley. Yeah, Timothy Bradley. I have to say again, so embarrassing from Timothy Bradley. I mean, I know Timothy Bradley gets a lot of heat from the LDBC. So I'm not going to pile in on Timothy Bradley. He gets a lot of heat from the LDBC for being a bootlicker. And you know what? Look, I disagree with that. But Timothy Bradley is saying tonight, with that performance, Errol Spence just walked up to 154. I mean, Timothy Bradley, should know better. Errol Spence will absolutely take the fight. Terence Crawford tonight, listen, a big step up in opposition. But let's be honest, that's as close to being beat as he looked. Listen, if that fight had gone a distance, let's have a look at the cards. What do you think about these cards? I thought Porter was up in the fight, but I wasn't really scoring for scoring's sake. I don't really care about that at the end of the day. But the judges have made their minds up before the fight's taken place in most cards anyway. Look at this. This is very, very interesting. So up to the stoppage. Let's have a look. Dave Moretti had Terence Crawford up 86-85, so he had Porter 1 round down. Francisco Valacerrao, if I said that correctly, had Terence Crawford a round up as well. So Terence Crawford was a round up on 2 cards, all right? And then on the 3rd card, the Celestino Ruiz card, Crawford was 3 rounds up going into the 10th round. Let's have a look at what rounds he gave to Porter. You just see here. He gave Porter the 1st round, the 3rd round, and the 5th round. He gave 6, 7, 8, 9, and 2 all to Crawford. I disagree with that card there. But listen, you know the way boxing works these days. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. This thing is very interesting. A lot of people writing off Errol Spence. Crazy talk, man. Spence is legit, man. That's all I can tell you, man. He hits a lot harder than Porter. I thought Porter hurt Terence Crawford a couple of times in tonight's fight, particularly with the overhand right. Particularly with the overhand right that he was throwing. Particularly with that overhand right against Crawford, that he hurt and rocked him. No shame in that, because Crawford's a great fighter. But yeah, what do you guys think? We can... couple more minutes and then maybe we'll call it a day, because like I said before, surprised we've got 30 people watching this, because like I said before, we're not really on UK time at the minute. But if you've got any more comments on the fight, what do you think? I thought that Shawn Porter, I wouldn't say he threw that fight away, right? Because Terence Crawford's a great fighter, but like I said before, standing inside the lead foot like that and lunging in, you're asking to walk yourself into a counter left hand. I'm very surprised Crawford didn't nail him with that shot early on. And let me tell you about adjustments as well. And it's a bit late to mention this, but you saw when Crawford started off as orthodox, Porter had his way with him in the 1st round. You see that? If you watch that 1st round, by the way, if you look at this 1st round here, look at this judge here. Let's go back to this card. This judge, Dave Moretti, oh no, he gave the 1st round to Porter. I thought he gave that a draw. That's right. He gave the 1st round to Porter. But I thought for me, the key was, right, the big adjustment that Terence Crawford makes in these fights against orthodox fighters is when he turns southpaw. And the reason why is he did the same thing. He did a very, very similar thing to Kell Brook, who's predominantly an orthodox fighter, but he can switch, right? If you look at the 1st round of Crawford and Porter, when they were both orthodox, can you see how easy it was for Porter to get the jab off? I bet you, again, go and have a look at the jab stats. I bet you any money Porter was very, very good with the jab in the 1st round, very active with the jab in the 1st round, but then it falls apart. And the reason why it fell apart was because Crawford turned southpaw on him. And that's the 1st adjustment that he made in the fight, really. In the 1st round, you'll see Porter landing the jab, landing the double jab, walking in behind the jab. Had a very, very good 1st round. Crawford then goes and turns southpaw, and he does that because the hands are on the same side, so he can use lead hand control to basically shut down Porter's jab. And then you combine that with a reach advantage, and that's when, right, the fight started to turn as early as the 2nd round, because once Terence Crawford switched southpaw and started using lead hand control, he took Porter's jab away from him. And then Porter really had to start lunging into range from lunging into range from outside of distance. And that was the game plan from the get-go. Using that reach, shutting down the jab, and making sure that Porter's lunging in from distance so you can set him up with shots. And that was the adjustment that Crawford made as early as round 2. But like I said before, I think what Porter started doing, which was very nice, is stepping and slipping to the outside and working off that. Stepping and slipping to the outside, throw the right hand down the middle. Stepping and slipping to the outside. And I think there's a very, very key thing there from Crawford. If you can, and another thing I will say this, and I forgot to mention this, is that another thing that Crawford did very, very good, in the early rounds is his foot feints. Throwing off Crawford's timing with the feints. Something that Errol Spence isn't going to be able to do when they fight. So for those of you who think that Crawford's going to knock Errol Spence silly, that may be something for you to watch out for. Crawford's very, very good at foot feinting. If you look at the rhythm he has, he's bouncing in, he's bouncing out, he's bouncing in, and then he throws that stutter step. You guys know what I'm talking about, yeah? Bouncing in, bouncing out, and then throws that stutter step. He throws that foot feint to trigger the opponent into throwing and missing, and then he steps in behind that. Porter's got very, very good feet like that. Very, very good feet with the feints and the movement. And he's got very, very good rhythm in tonight's fight. And that was another thing. He was throwing off Crawford's timing. Crawford kept trying to time him with the right hook on the way in. He was landing a few, but he was missing a lot. And Porter was throwing off Crawford's timing by feinting, not just walking in. He was feinting. Lots of movement, hittery, jittery, throwing foot fakes, and then stepping in behind. So that was something to watch out for as well. But I think the key with Crawford is if somebody can negate his reach, he's got really long arms, yeah, and he's very, very good at lead hand control. Now, Errol Spence is also exceptionally good at lead hand control. If you watch Errol Spence fights, again, Errol Spence is exceptionally good at shutting down orthodox jabs, walking himself into range, and then unloading body shots. He's very, very good. That's Errol Spence's MO. So when you've got Crawford and you've got Spence, you've got two guys who are both exceptional, yeah, at lead hand control and shutting down jabs. So we'll see who wins at that. I would lean towards Crawford in that fight. I would lean towards Crawford because I just have the feeling that Spence is going to end up walking himself onto one too many shots. But listen, that's the kind of thing that if Spence comes in with the right game plan, and Spence is very, very good at slipping and throwing body shots. Very, very good at slipping and throwing body shots. And if he can get underneath Crawford's jab, or if he can slip Crawford's jab and start hooking to the body and getting some shots off, it could be an interesting fight. I think Errol Spence has a really good chance to beat him. If that makes sense what I'm saying. I think Crawford's the favourite just, but I think Errol Spence really has a good chance to beat him. And those people who think it's a foregone conclusion, I think they're smoking crack cocaine. That's my honest opinion. I think Spence will land against Crawford and he's going to walk himself into range. And Crawford's very hittable. And I think Errol Spence carries a different type of power to what Shawn Porter carries. And Shawn Porter hurt Crawford tonight. I think Errol Spence carries a different type of power, man. Let's go through some comments, and then if anybody's got any more comments, we'll see what we can do. Right, Slicks Boxing says, Ultra, thoughts on Josh Taylor beating Crawford will never happen in a million years. Josh Taylor wouldn't see the final bell against Crawford, period. He gets smashed to pieces. Josh Taylor's whole MO is, a lot of Josh Taylor's MO is on being the bigger guy, and he fights a lot of close quarters, a lot of dogfighting at close quarters. He's another guy who, again, the casual fans, and I think Josh Taylor's pound for pound the best fighter in Britain, right? But he's another one where the casual fans have built up this kind of narrative about, you know, Josh Taylor's slick. I've heard people tell me Josh Taylor's a slick fighter. Have you seen how much this guy gets hit in fights and hurt in fights as well? Fuck. Look at the first 3-4 rounds of that fight with Ramirez. Man, he was getting hit and getting hurt in that fight before he walked Ramirez onto that great shot. I don't know about Terence. This is just a bad matchup. Crawford is a terrible matchup for Josh Taylor. He wouldn't see the final bell. He would not see the final bell. Crawford's the faster fighter. Crawford's the bigger fighter. Crawford's the stronger fighter. Crawford's the bigger puncher. It's just bad, 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 you know? Bad, bad, bad. Josh Taylor, anytime he tried to get inside, he'd get worked. He'd walk himself into a barrage of punches. And Crawford's explosive. And when Crawford gets someone like Josh Taylor, he's going to end that very quickly. I mean, Crawford is an outstanding finisher. You know, I do think the casuals overrate him a little bit, if I'm being honest. Guys, hit the like button if you can. 37 in. I'm surprised we've got 37 in here because it's 20 to 7 in the morning UK time, right? But hit the like button a little bit more from me if you can. I'd be amazed if Josh Taylor could go the distance with Crawford. Wouldn't happen. He'd get smoked. He'd get absolutely smoked. Slicks Boxing says these scorecards prove the fix was in. The fight was a close fight. There were definitely swing rounds. I'm not sure about this card though that's got Terence Crawford 3 rounds up before the end of the fight. But listen, I wouldn't say that those are horrendous scorecards. There are a lot of swing rounds. I thought Porter was up in the fight, to be honest. And yeah, that's what I think. Bumper K's, we're talking about Canelo and Usyk. Canelo ain't taking that fight, lol. His team ain't daft. Usyk is a terrible fight for Canelo Alvarez. That's a terrible fight for Canelo Alvarez. Terrible fight. Usyk will run rings around him. You forget that fight. Canelo forget that. What Canelo's doing at the moment, right? Canelo's got unbelievable power, yeah? And he's very, very good at closing fighters off and walking fighters down and then slowing them down with big shots. That's not going to happen against Usyk. Usyk's going to keep him at the end of a jab. Usyk's footwork is on a different level. Usyk, most importantly, he's got a great engine as well. He's got a great engine, and Canelo Alvarez is not going to be able to really put a dent in Usyk, in my opinion. Dave says, if Josh Taylor got inside and hurt him, Crawford would tie him up and turn him with those big arms. He won't even hurt him. Crawford's explosive. Crawford is explosive. Did you see what happened to... Listen, 2 things to take away from the fight tonight. In the clinches, Terence Crawford looked stronger than Shawn Porter in the clinches. I mean, there was one round, I think it was round 6, where Crawford was just walking him down in a high guard. He was literally walking him down in a high guard. And when Porter was enforcing the clinch, Crawford was picking him and walking him to the ropes. To me, tonight, I thought that Crawford looked the stronger out of the two on the inside, the stronger. In terms of when they were on the clinches, it looked to me like, you know, Crawford was walking him to the corner at times. Crawford's strong. He's doing that to Porter. Josh Taylor wouldn't have a fucking hope against Crawford, inside or outside. He gets smoked. He gets smoked. Listen, I love Josh Taylor, yeah, but I'm going to tell you how it is. He would get fucking smoked by Crawford. Really, really bad fight. Really, really bad fight. And he wouldn't even get to the inside anyway. Taylor wouldn't get to the inside. He'd get taken out long before that. Let's have a look here. You guys talking about this? Oh, you guys talking about Chris Mannix, Charlo versus Andrade is the biggest fight in the world. Chris Mannix is a joke. Because Shevin was asking me, he said, who's the bigger company man, Johnny Nelson or Chris Maddox? Well, it's Chris Mannix. I think Chris Mannix is the worst pundit / commentator on worldwide. He is the pound for pound #1 worst commentator / pundit in the world. There's nobody worse. UK, US, Uzbekistan, you know, from fucking Land's End to John O'Groats, there's nobody worse than Chris Mannix. He says the dumbest shit ever. You know, it's funny, you know, there's a lot of narratives about these fighters. And what I would say is, right, about these fighters, don't look at the narratives. Just turn off the commentary, turn the sound down, and just look at the actual skill. And look at this. Shawn Porter's announced he's retired from boxing. Wow. Need to change the title of the stream, don't we? Unbelievable. Shawn Porter's announced that he's retired from boxing. Unbelievable. Let me just change the title of the stream. Wow. One sec. That's unbelievable. One sec, guys. One sec. What do you guys think about that? Breaking news. Unbelievable. I think he'll reverse that. I think that's a very, very we'll see. Hold on. Shawn Porter retires from boxing after Crawford KO. Wow. That's unbelievable. Let's get this up. Guys, if you're here, hit the like button. Let's get this up. Hit the like button if you're in. Here you go. I'm not going to show the video because I don't want to get done for copyright. But Shawn Porter has announced that he's retired from boxing following his defeat to Terence Crawford. Let me tell you something right now. George C says, seems a bit reactionary from Shawn. This is what I've been saying in this video, right? This is what I've been saying in this video. The camp was wrong. There was something was not right in camp. When you listen to what Kenny Porter said in a post-fight interview, right? If people actually listened to what Kenny Porter said in the post-fight interview, right, then this makes sense. That's what he said. He said Shawn Porter did not train properly or did not train correctly for this fight. That's what Kenny Porter said. Kenny Porter said that's the reason I pulled him out. He did not train correctly for this fight. So what does that mean? That means that Shawn Porter, right, didn't train correctly for the fight. Has he lost his heart for boxing? Has he lost the hunger for boxing? Shawn Porter's been doing a lot of media work. A lot of media work. Seems to enjoy. He's a very, very knowledgeable guy. I think he's one of the best pundits in all of boxing. Seems to enjoy spending time on camera, talking about boxing, doing his Porter's Way podcast. So when you add it all up together, right, this is what I'm saying. When you add it all up and you listen to what Kenny Porter said, and this is why I think ESPN's coverage, yeah, was absolutely disgusting, because Kenny Porter was telling you what was going on. Kenny Porter, if you actually listen to Kenny Porter's post-fight interview, Kenny Porter was telling you the whole time Shawn Porter wasn't right going into the fight, and there were obviously problems. But ESPN was so fucking mixed up in this, you know, let's put over Terence Crawford. Mark Kriegel, how much of an idiot does Mark Kriegel look tonight? Mark Kriegel needs to retire from ESPN and retire from commentating. He said tonight that's the best Shawn Porter we've seen tonight. That's what he said. He said that's the best Shawn Porter we've seen tonight. Straight after his father and trainer said he's not been giving it 100% in camp. Simple as that. The writing's on the wall. Listen to what the trainers are saying. Stop trying to spin narratives. And I'll get it. People will attack me for saying that. People will attack me for listening to the fucking trainer. Palmo Parade says Kenny made out that he wasn't listening in camp and being lazy. That's exactly what happened in the post-fight. That's what Kenny did. Kenny said he wasn't listening. Kenny's exact words about Shawn Porter were, he thinks he knows it all or something, isn't it? Isn't that what Kenny said about Shawn Porter? Kenny said that he thinks he knows it all, or he said he thinks he knows exactly what he's doing, but he doesn't. These are the comments that Kenny was making post-fight. And it all points towards, right, problems in the camp. And I'm not trying to take away any of the shine from Crawford. I'm just telling you how it is. People are asking, why did he get pulled out? That's the reason why Kenny pulled him out. Now, if ESPN had actually done their job and actually acknowledged that, right, then we wouldn't be having this fucking conversation. But because they were so keen to brush that aside so they can bum Crawford, he's probably going to end up on PBC anyway. Crawford's probably going to end up on a fight-by-fight deal as a free agent. Crawford's probably going to end up on PBC anyway. So all this arse-licking that ESPN are doing, they're wasting their time anyway, because Crawford's probably going to end up saying thanks to Al Heyman in the next 12 months anyway. Just like Canelo did, yeah? Just like Canelo ended up saying thank you, Al Heyman. Crawford's going to be saying thank you, Al Heyman, inside the next 12 months. So Mark Kriegel, Andre Ward, yeah, Timothy Porter and the rest of them are fucking wasted their time. Let's have a look at some of these. Let's see if we can get some of these comments, some of the reaction on Twitter. These guys are blaming Kenny Porter. So these guys think he's retiring because of the Kenny Porter stoppage. No way. No way. No way. He's not been. I guarantee you, right? He's not been dedicating himself to the sport 100%. Shevin made a comment here. Shevin said, "Exceptional career. I could see PBC making Shawn versus Boots in a year. Yeah, I believe he'll come back. I believe he will come back, but he's at a bad camp, isn't he? He's at a really bad camp. Hit the like button. We went up to 40 people, actually, at 6 in the morning. At 7 in the morning, I'll fucking take that. Hit the like button. Davis and Dave says he'll be back before the end of 2022. Listen, like I said before, you've got to take these after the fight retirements with a pinch of salt because, like I said, the guy's hurting, but the camp was not right. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? Camp wasn't right. You know, and I think Kenny Porter has done a tremendous job and he should be commended because if you've seen your son cut corners in camp, you don't want him in there with a lethal finisher like Terence Crawford. And after the second knockdown, Kenny Porter saw the writing on the wall. He saw the writing on the wall and he knew his son was not 100% going into the fight. And he said, I'm not going to let this guy take any punishment. I think Kenny Porter deserves a lot of respect. Dudes on the internet think he's retiring because he's protesting Kenny Porter's decision. Completely disagree. Look at this dude. That's how much of a badass Crawford is. Oh, Jesus Christ. Fuck me. But like I said before, a lot of these guys have never put gloves on, so they don't even know what they're talking about. I could be wrong, but, you know. Let's have a look here. What do you guys think about that? Oh, fucking hell. I'm trying to get on Twitter here. Six Boxing says retirement looks so sus. All part of the storyline to make Crawford look invincible. Nah, I don't think so. I just think Porter had a bad camp. Porter had a bad camp. And that's why Kenny Porter pulled him out. Slicks Boxing says, I'm not buying it. Porter wasn't even that hurt. Oh, my God. Did you see the second punch he took to the side of his head? Oh, my God. Did you see that right hook he took? He took a massive right hook. He took a huge right hook. He'd have been hurt. He was definitely on the way out at that point. First knockdown, yeah. Uppercut. Caught him partially on the chest, partially on the chin. But there was no doubt about the second right hook. That was a heavy, heavy shot he took. Heavy shot. I think it was a very, very good decision. I think as time goes on, history will show that Kenny Porter made a very, very good decision tonight. Very, very good decision from Kenny Porter tonight. He saved his son. He has saved his son because if Porter, yeah, I agree. It was leading to a KO. It was leading to a KO, and Kenny Porter did the right thing. Kenny Porter's given Shawn Porter the opportunity to come back to boxing if he wants to at a later point. before Terence Crawford really started unleashing hands on him. Palmer Perez says, Porter looked good as usual. He wasn't hurting Crawford, though, so couldn't really do much more. I think he hurt Crawford a couple times, particularly with overhand rights over the top. That's my opinion. He get Crawford hurt a couple times in the fight. Who are you guys picking, Spence or Crawford? Spence or Crawford? Let's get this down. Who are you guys picking, Spence or Crawford? I will go with Crawford because I think he's got a little bit more versatility, but I really think Spence can get him. It's a weird one because I think Crawford, I'll make Crawford the favourite, but I just think, like I said before, I think people miss things about Crawford. It's a bit like Usyk. People miss things about Crawford, you know, and it's one of them ones where casuals like to make themselves sound clever. So they'll go along with the crowd and they'll say things like, Crawford, there's no way to beat Crawford. He's undefeatable. He's unhittable. And it's really not the case, you know. I think Crawford and Spence is a very, very close fight. Either one can win. I think it's a very, very close to 50-50. I think Crawford's got a little bit more versatility, but I think Spence is different. Spence is very, very different than Porter. I think, you know, like I said before, Spence is very, very different. And the thing to watch with Spence is very, very good at shutting down the jab and walking himself into range. Very, very good. What swings it for me is Kell Brook versus Errol Spence. And you see how effective Kell Brook was early on in that fight. And that was a Kell Brook who'd been smashed to pieces by Gennady Golovkin, right? You see how effective Kell Brook was in walking Errol Spence into shots. Crawford's in his peak. Crawford's in his prime. I would say Crawford is more more athletic, more explosive, and quicker than Kell Brook's ever been at any point in his career. And that's, to me, what would probably pip it towards. On that basis, I'd probably lean towards Crawford. But I tell you what, I can definitely see Spence getting to him. Definitely. Don't write off Errol Spence in that fight. And you need to look, these guys, the fights that you need to look at, is look at that Jose Benavidez fight in particular. Because, you know, Crawford has lost a few rounds. Not saying he's not one of the best in the world, but he has lost a few rounds. Spence isn't beating Crawford, not now and not in the next lifetime. Okay, that's not how boxing works, mate. But okay, mate, that's fine. Everyone's got their own opinion. Do you know what I mean? Usyk was going to get beat by Anthony Joshua. So, yeah, Usyk was going to get stopped by Anthony Joshua. Too small. Too small. Can't take a punch, right? Because Usyk struggled against Derek Chisora. So he was never going to beat Anthony Joshua, right? Too small. Not really a true heavyweight. What happened? Needy gets Anthony Joshua out of there in the last round. Boxing's on the night. Boxing is on the night. Trevin Branch says, coincidence, Shawn retires after that BS stoppage. I think we've already discussed that. I don't think it was a BS stoppage. I think Kenny Porter, if you listen to what he said in the post-fight, has made the right. You know, somehow, some way, we're at 70 concurrent people at 7 in the morning. Jesus Christ. I don't know how we've got to 70 concurrent people at 7. It's not even 7 in the morning UK time. That's laughable. Bloody hell. Thanks to everybody listening. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Ask a question. We'll answer the question. We've talked about the mistakes that... So let me just quickly say, for those people who are just joining the show, all right, because people are dipping in and out. For those people who've just joined in the show, Shawn Porter's retired from boxing tonight. I had Shawn Porter up in the fight, right, until he got stopped. I had Shawn Porter up in the fight until he got stopped. And I think Shawn Porter made a couple of mistakes tonight that... I wouldn't say handed Crawford the win, but he made a big mistake with the feet. Big mistake with the feet, which in my opinion cost him the fight. And that was the angle. Obviously, we know what Porter does, right? Porter has to throw himself into range and get his shots off. We know what Porter does. That's what Porter does, right? Porter's like a bull in the china shop. He throws himself into range. He gets his shots off, right? But I think the big mistake he made, right, was with his feet. He was always, inside the lead foot of Crawford, and he was lined up for the left hand, and he threw himself into he was doing it all fight, basically, throwing himself towards the left hand. And Crawford was all night long was taking steps back and looking to throw the counter uppercut at him all night long, and eventually one of them stuck and it ended the fight. And I just think if Crawford had been a bit clever and started, trying to get his lead foot on the outside, and then because when you're closing down fighters in boxing, I'm not a boxer, right? I've never had a fight, me, I've done a bit of sparring, but when you close down and walk fighters down, what people don't understand is the angles that you come in from, right? You guys know what I mean. There's an art to closing down and walking down fighters and closing down the space. You've got to be clever with the angles, right? If you're going to throw yourself in, if you're going to close distance quickly and throw yourself in, you've got to do it behind the right angles. You've got to do it at an angle where you're not walking yourself into a shot. And Shawn Porter didn't do that. Shawn Porter didn't do that. Big mistake, And again, I would love to show it on a replay, but I would get done for copyright. But that was a big mistake that he made tonight. Should have got his foot on the outside or tried to get his foot on the outside and then throwing himself in. Nice angle for the right hand. Get your lead foot on the outside and come in behind the right hand. Come in behind the right hand, dip low. But what did he do? He didn't. He was standing right inside Crawford's lead foot. And he was right in line for the left hand. He threw himself in, and that was a wrap. Games You Love said Crawford is very popular in the UK. Yeah, because he beat Ricky Burns. I think that was it. He beat Ricky Burns. For those of you who are joining, a few people have tried to come at me with Josh Taylor versus Terence Crawford. I don't think Josh Taylor has a hope in hell in that fight. Slicks Boxing says, I doubt we will even see a Crawford Spence. The state of boxing politics is a joke. I think we'll see it. I think we'll definitely see it. I think Spence will take the fight. Could see it next. Why not? Crawford's a free agent. What politics is there? Crawford's a free agent. So I think soon you'll be seeing Terence Crawford saying thank you, Al Heyman, on a PBC card. I'll make him the favourite. Where would you, before we wind up, where would you rank Crawford in your pound for pound rankings? My pound for pound rankings are slightly different. I don't really care about pound for pound. Personally, I think Usyk's win over Anthony Joshua away from home makes him the number one in the sport. That's my opinion for me. That's my opinion, right? I think Usyk's win against Anthony Joshua away from home to become an undisputed cruiserweight and a unified heavyweight champion. No, I'm sorry. For me, Usyk is the best fighter in the world based off that, in my opinion. I know most people will disagree with that, but you have to think about the size difference. Think about the fucking size difference that Alexander Usyk had to overcome in that fight with Anthony Joshua. And he was up against one of the biggest punchers in all of boxing, right? No disrespect to Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is not one of the biggest punchers in all of boxing. Usyk was up against a guy who can put your lights out in one shot. And he dominated him away from home. He went up a weight to do it, right? And he also nearly stopped him in the last round. So for me personally, I would say Usyk's the best fighter in the world. That based off that, that's me. I know people disagree. Games You Love disagrees. But if you think beating Caleb Plant, who's Canelo beat? If you think beating Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith is on the same level as going away from home and beating Anthony Joshua, then that's up to you. I don't think it is. What do you guys think in the comment section? What do you think about that? Beating Anthony Joshua away from home, moving up to heavyweight. Are you crazy? We're talking different levels versus someone who fought Billy Joe Saunders and fucking Callum Smith. Come on, man. What are we talking about, man? Callum Smith. I love Canelo Alvarez. Listen, I don't love Canelo Alvarez. I respect his skills, right? But do you understand, yeah? What one man fought Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith, yeah? And the other one went up to heavyweight and fought one of the biggest punchers in all of boxing. And beat him away from home. Do you understand that part? Usyk beat Anthony Joshua away from home. Not only did he beat him, but he dominated him and he nearly stopped him. Come on, man. For me, that would be enough to make Usyk the number one. 82 people right now. Hit the like button. Listen, 82 people, 25 likes. Jesus Christ. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, that's for me. I like Usyk. I think Usyk is the number one. But pound for pound, I don't really care about pound for pound. Like Arturo Venegas is saying, where do you have Spence in your pound for pound list? Do you know what? I think pound for pound is bollocks. Do you know what I do? All this pound for pound stuff for me is nonsense, right? I always go on, yeah? I always go on skill for skill. I don't give a shit about pound for pound. I'm not one for resumes and all that stuff. I just look skill for skill. who do I think the most skilled fighter in the world is? That's how I look at it. That's always how I've looked at it, right? That's so I've come up with the term skill for skill, who's the best in the world? And for me, that is Vasily Lomachenko, and that's never changed. That's me. That's my opinion. 106 people, 26 likes. Unbelievable. 106 people here at 7 a.m. in the morning. If you've just joined, we're just quickly talking about your guys' pound for pound top 5. I don't really give a shit about pound for pound, but you guys are obsessed with this fucking list. Guys like Michael Benson are obsessed with lists. We're also talking about Shawn Porter immediate retirement following his loss to Terence Crawford. What do you think about the Crawford, the performance tonight? Who do you think is the best welterweight in the world? 132 people. 137 people. Who do you think is the best welterweight in the world? Let me give you some talking points, and then you can come at me. Here are my talking points. I would say at the minute, I say you have to say Errol Spence is the best welterweight in the world until proven otherwise, because I think he's beaten the better opposition at welterweight. That's my opinion. So I would say right now, Errol Spence is the best in the world because Errol Spence has fought Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia. Really, there's only one more guy from. Well, actually, that's not true. You've got the young guns, Jaron Ennis and Ortiz and these kind of people. But look, I think I would go for Spence based on who Spence has beat. Also, when he's beat them. Just no disrespect, but I think Porter was a little bit fresher when he fought Errol Spence as to when he fought tonight. I mean, you've seen Kenny Porter tonight. For those of you who have just come in and watching the show, there's now 157 of you here. I don't know how we've got 157 people here at 7 in the morning, but it is what it is, right? For those of you who just joined, Shawn Porter's announced his retirement. Kenny Porter in the post-fight interview basically said that Shawn Porter didn't give his all in camp, right? He wasn't 100% going into the fight. And that he wasn't listening properly. So there are obviously big question marks over the desire of Shawn Porter. I think the writing's been on the wall for Shawn Porter for some time because if you see, I think he enjoys the punditry too much. I think Shawn Porter enjoys being behind the camera. And I think it's possible that Shawn Porter has decided that he doesn't want to box anymore. Look at this. In Vietnam, just tuned in. Hey, man, shout out to Vietnam. Unbelievable, man. Hit the like button, man. 177 people watching. And they can't hit the like button. So what we're doing in a minute is we're going through these talking points. Do you think the fight, the stoppage was a fix? I don't think it was a fix at all. I think it was a good stoppage. So do you think it was a good stoppage? Right? Who do you think is the best welterweight in the world? Who is your pound for pound top 5? I'll go through it for a jokes. And who wins? Errol Spence or Terence Crawford? Let's get to your. We've got 195 people here. I don't know how that's possible. Jesus Christ. 6 in the morning, 195 people. Let's have a look. Luke Bignell says, Porter was lunging in too much towards the end, but I thought he was doing well in there. Yeah. Luke, listen. Just watch the feet. Yeah? Watch the feet. When Porter's lunging in, he needs to have his foot on the outside of Crawford's lead foot. Don't have your foot on the inside of Crawford's lead foot because when you place your... Are there any orthodox boxers out there? When you stand inside the southpaw lead foot like that and you lunge in, you're lunging into a left hand. That's the whole point of getting your lead foot on the outside. That's to avoid the left hand. That's why a lot of orthodox fighters like to get on the outside of the southpaw lead foot. That's so they can avoid the straight left hand. Shawn Porter made the big mistake tonight. He stepped inside Terence Crawford's lead foot, and then he lunged in to cut the distance. And Crawford set him up with a counter left uppercut, which he was looking for all night long. And that was the end of the fight. So I think, look, the writing was on the wall. Yeah, Crawford may have eked it out anyway because he's a true champion. But I think that Porter, with the correct tactics, could have taken the fight a little bit longer. I'd also like to see him throw a few more left hooks, lead a bit more of the left hook. Lead a bit more of the left hook and slip the jab to the outside. But it's very, very hard for me really to explain these technical concepts to people because I can't show you the fight footage. If I show you the fight footage, I'll get done for copyright. Yeah. So what can I do? YouTube has completely tied the hands of content creators. I would love to now be able to go back and show you footage of the knockout. I could slow it down and put arrows and markers around, and I'll show you exactly the mistake that Shawn Porter made. 227 people here. Get your comments in. We've got nearly 200 people in. Nobody's commenting. No, maybe these are all Russian bots. Shawn Porter has retired from boxing. Let's have a look here. Slick's boxing's pound for pound top 5 is Canelo, Usyk, Inoue, Crawford, and Fury. Well, most people will say you can't have Tyson Fury in there because he's a heavyweight. To me, that's dumb. I've never understood that. I wouldn't say Fury's a top 5, though. I wouldn't put Fury top 5 at all. I think Usyk can actually beat Tyson Fury, by the way. The same way I believe that Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford, I believe that Usyk can actually beat Tyson Fury. T-Dub here says, here from Omaha. Oh my God. So you're not gonna like what I've said about Crawford tonight then. Supporting our hometown champ. Yeah, shout out to Omaha. Omaha, stand up. Stand up, Omaha. Terence Crawford, a hell of a fighter. Listen, I'll be honest with you, T-Dub. I think Crawford's just slightly overhyped, slightly by some of the boxing casuals, but he still is a great fighter. Great fighter, definitely in the top 2 at welterweight. And I think he's the favourite to beat Errol Spence, but I think it's a live fight. But I'll tell you one thing, Crawford's a dog. That's the one thing I'll say about Terence Crawford. The man has dog in him. He is an absolute dog. Listen, when the bullets start flying, Terence Crawford's as good as anybody in boxing. You know, when the bullets start flying. And again, one thing I will say, we've got so many new people joining here, so I'm just rerunning through some of my talking points here. But the one thing that shocked me about tonight's fight was how strong Crawford was on the inside. Again, you watch back at round 6, the way Crawford's walking Porter to the ropes. That was fucking crazy. That was crazy, man. To see Crawford walking over to the ropes. Let me tell you, Crawford is very strong. Very, very strong individual. Can I ask you a question? Does this sound crazy? But does Terence Crawford have a background in wrestling? Can anybody tell me that? I don't know if I've heard that before, that Crawford has some kind of background in wrestling. I might think of somebody else. Very, very strong on the inside. Very strong on the inside. And that's something that people need to have a look. Yeah, there you go. Games You Love says Crawford trains wrestling. I thought so. I thought I heard about he has a wrestling background. Very, very, very strong on the inside. That was a big eye-opener. You know, a guy who's previously campaigned at 135 pounds, and he was walking Shawn Porter over to the ropes like that. That's an eye-opener. That's an eye-opener. Big, big, big eye-opener there. Very strong fighter. Listen, I think Crawford, I don't think he's this master boxer that he's hard to hit. He's not, to me, he's not like a Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr., yeah, was different. Floyd Mayweather Jr. was all about rhythm. He was all about timing. Floyd was different. Floyd was a different kind of fighter. Floyd was obviously very hard to hit, very slick. For me, Terence Crawford's different. Terence Crawford's just, as an athlete, he's unbelievable. And that's where his strengths lie. As an athlete, he can box, but he can also dish out punishment. He's vicious. No question about that. Terence Crawford's in the ring. He's in the ring to hurt people. He's not in the ring to win fights on points. He's in the ring to hurt people. He's a dog. He's got dog in him. He's got bad intent. Obviously, the man nearly lost his life and got shot. You know? Nearly lost his life and got shot. So, I mean, he's a dog. He's an absolute dog. And that's what I'm saying about Errol Spence. Errol Spence ain't going to manhandle Terence Crawford when they get in the ring. Even though Spence is huge. Spence is fucking huge. People have got to remember, Spence is walking around like heavyweight, easy, when he's not training. Spence is huge. But I don't think he's going to manhandle Crawford. But I tell you what, Crawford has got to stop him getting to the inside because those body shots from Spence are different. And let me tell you right now, Spence has a different kind of power to what Porter has. But like I said, I'll make Crawford the favourite. Spence walks around 173, says Shevin. We've got 270 people. I don't know how that's happened here. 270 people, 7 in the morning UK time. Omaha, stand up. We've got Vietnam in the building. Listen. Give me a shout if you're listening from a foreign country. It's very unusual. We do big numbers, but we do big numbers in the UK, not in the States. So if you're abroad and you're listening, give us a roll call. Where are you listening from? Get your questions in. The thing is, you've got 300 people listening and nobody's giving any questions. Walter Tran says it was a fix. Definitely was not a fix. Definitely was not a fix. Legit stoppage. Legit stoppage. Legit stoppage. And that's why Shawn Porter's called it a day. Absolutely. That's why Shawn Porter's called it a day. New Jersey. Shout out to the Jersey Shore. Shout out to T-Dub. Yes, he does have a wrestling background. Yeah, I thought so. I thought I heard before he had a wrestling background. I wonder if that's got something to do with how strong he is in the clinches. Very strong in the clinches. Slicks Boxing says, Ultra, does Crawford have it in him to be successful at 154 or 160? 154. God. Oh, man, it's 7 in the morning. I haven't really... Hey, Virginia in the house. Look at this. Look, stand up. Lincoln, stand up. We got Americans in here. Omaha, Jesus Christ, Jesus. Omaha really standing up for your boy. Hey, you should be proud of the guy, man. He's a tremendous fighter. Hey, this is an interesting point. Phoenix Atlantis said he was going to 154. That's a very, very interesting point. Crawford did say he would consider, but I think what he said was he would consider chasing Spence up to 154. I think he's capable of beating Spence at 154. I'm just trying to think about how he would get on against Jermell Charlo. Because you see, Jermell Charlo's a hard hitter, man. This is what I'm saying. Like, these guys, like, these Charlos are huge, dog. This is what you got to understand about these dudes that are walking around. These Charlos are fucking huge, man. And I don't know, man. I'm not sure if he can dominate 154. Definitely become a world champion, absolutely. But dominate 154, I don't see it yet. Depends who's up there when he gets there. You don't want to be taking overhand rights from Jermell Charlo. Tell you that now. You don't want to be taking overhand rights from Jermell Charlo. Shout out to Middlesbrough and Teesside. Look, what we got here? I think we've got Philly as well. Did someone say they're from Philly? They're from Umar Johnson country. If you up in, whoever said they're in Philly, work yourself down to Wilmington and ask Umar Johnson when he's building that school. Shout out to Umar Johnson and the HVAC. The coloured people in here will know what I'm talking about. Let's have a look here. Let's go through some of these comments. Oh, this is interesting. Chris Perry says Boots beats Crawford easy. I haven't seen enough of Boots Ennis yet, so I can't make a judgment on that. I think most people would say you're crazy. I think most people would say you're crazy, but I need to see more of Boots Ennis. Do you guys think, let me ask you guys a question. 250 in here right now. Do you guys think, let me ask you guys this question, right? Do you guys really think Spence is scared of Crawford? Let me know what you think about that. My opinion is I don't think Spence is scared of Crawford. I think it's politics that's been getting in the way, with Crawford being ESPN and Spence being PBC. Now Crawford's a free agent. I think the fight can happen. I think the fight will happen. I think the fight will get made. There's no reason for the fight not to get made. I just think that it's been networks that have been stopping it from happening. Period. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think Spence is scared of Crawford? I don't think he is. Crawford will fight him tomorrow. We know that. Crawford will fight him tomorrow. But what do you think? Walter says, hell no. I don't think these two are scared of each other at all. Crawford wants to fight. Spence wants to fight. It's just networks. Listen, I think in the next 12 months, the fight will happen. And you'll be hearing Crawford saying, thank you, Al Heyman. Simple as that. Yeah, okay. Most of you guys are saying, yeah. You guys are thinking I'm surprised. I thought most of you would say, nah, they're ducking. One of them's scared. But no, you guys agree with me. I agree. These two ain't scared of each other. These two ain't scared of each other. And who are you guys backing? Who are you guys backing? Crawford or Spence? I've got Crawford just, but I think Spence could get him out of there. Look at this guy. ATX Drew's got Spence all day. Why? Why have you got Spence all day over Crawford? I've got Crawford just. And for those of and the reason why I keep repeating myself is because we've got a lot of people joining. Let me just repeat myself one more time and then I'll go through some more comments. Crawford's very hittable. That's my opinion. Crawford's hittable. Right? He's not a slick boxer. He's hittable. Right? But for me, the reason why I lean towards Crawford, just a little bit more versatile. A little bit more versatile. Not going to get too technical on this video, but I'm going to say this. I believe when Terence Crawford fights Errol Spence, he'll fight out of an orthodox stance all the way through the fight. I don't believe he'll turn southpaw against Errol Spence, but I could be wrong on that. I think he'll fight out of an orthodox stance, and I think he'll play it very, very simple. I think, like I said before, he'll hold out those long arms. He'll hold out them long arms. He'll try and stick behind the jab, and the key will be make Spence fall short. Make Spence reach in and make Spence fall short. And when Spence falls in short, right hand. And the fight to go and watch for that is if you watch Errol Spence and Kell Brook. Watch Errol Spence and Kell Brook, which is probably one of Kell Brook's toughest fights, probably one of Errol Spence's toughest fights in his career. If you watch Errol Spence and Kell Brook and you watch the first 6 rounds of Errol Spence and Kell Brook, you will see that was the game plan that Kell Brook tried to do. And actually, I thought Kell Brook was winning the fight up until the 6th round, and then Spence took it over. But that's what they'll be trying to do against Spence, because Spence doesn't really move his head on the way in. And that's the thing about Errol Spence, right? Errol Spence is very good about closing distance, but Errol Spence doesn't really move his head on the way in. His head's kind of stuck on the line. He does walk in on lines, Errol Spence. And you walk in on lines against someone like Crawford, who's extremely quick and extremely explosive. It can end in tears very, very quickly. So that's how I think. But where I disagree is with fans who think it's a foregone conclusion that Crawford's going to wipe him out. I don't think so. I think it can go any way, but I just think that Crawford may have just a few more tools in his toolbox about how he can win the fight. But anything can happen in boxing. Anything. Sad Ken says Crawford will go his whole career unbeaten. It's possible, but history shows that's not going to happen. In boxing, somebody always has your number. Chris Perry says, I think the fans win with Crawford Spence. Absolutely. I think it's going to be a dogfight. Dogfight. One more thing I'll say about Spence and Crawford is this. Spence is very, very tight at the weight. That's the one thing I'll say about Spence and Crawford. Spence is extremely tight at the weight. And when fighters who are tight at the weight start taking shots on the whiskers, things happen. And that's the one thing to look out for. You know, Spence is very, very tight at the weight. If you've ever seen Errol Spence on the scales, he looks dead. Let me see if I can get Errol Spence on the scales quickly. Look. Have you seen this man? If you see this man when he weighed in against Kell Brook, he looked like something from Tales from the Crypt. He looked dead. If you look at these two when they was on the scales, there's no body fat. Just hold on, look at this. Spence looks ill. Can you see what I'm saying? Like, look at Brook. Brook looks like he's been in a concentration camp. Brook looks like he's just stepped out of a concentration camp. Look at these guys. There's no body fat. These guys absolutely drain it to the last pound, man. These guys drain it to the last pound. Look at the state of these two when they stepped on the scales. There's no body fat there. So I'm just telling you now, man. Yeah, Chris Perry's right. Javonta's had problems making weight for years. Yeah, you're right. But Spence is one of them fighters where you look at Spence on the scales and he looks like he could pass out any minute. Jesus fucking Christ. So I'm saying when you get fighters that are tight at the weight and they start getting dogfights, it can get tasty. Yeah, Brook always looked bad on the scales. Games You Love says Brook looks worse. Brook on the scales, one of the worst fighters I've ever seen. It looks dead, Brook. Brook looks like Ricky Gervais. Looks like he's about to pass through to the afterlife, innit? Let's have a look here. Yes, R.I.P. Soldier. What? What the fuck? Oh, I see. Over that stuff. Okay, cool. Oh, you guys had me thinking Soldier Boy really passed away. Right, pound for pound. Let's have a look. Bud takes 1 and gives 3. Spence will fall like the rest. Could happen. Phoenix Atlantis Entertainment says Spence has lost a step since the accident. That's a shame. Slicks Boxing says Boots is another one who's overhyped and has no chin. Just ask Ingram about the sparring horror stories. He's just beating up tomato cans at the minute. I'm not sure about that. Chris Perry disagrees. He said Boots is too much for the champions at 147. Watch it. I need to. The thing about me is, right, when I watch fighters, I really watch it. Does that make sense? Like, when I watch a fight, I will watch it. So when I watch a boxing fight, just so you know, I will turn off the volume and I will actually slow it down as well to 0.5 speed. That's how you really analyze fights. If you're into that kind of thing, yeah? So when you're, for those of you who box, yeah, or for those of you who go in the gym, or for those of you who like a spar, yeah? Whenever you're looking at opponents or analyzing opponents, right? A couple of times, guys in my gym have had fights and I've looked at the opponent on YouTube. These days, fighters are all over YouTube, yeah? The first thing you do is turn the sound down and slow it down because it's very, very hard to pick up, yeah, the intricacies of boxing at full speed. When you start slowing down and rewinding, that's when you start picking up fighters' tendencies. Shawn Porter, in my opinion, do you think he'll come? I'm going to wind it up soon. Not quite yet, but I'm going to wind it up soon. Shawn Porter, do you think he'll come back to boxing? I think we'll see Shawn Porter back in the ring within the next 12 to 24 months. But I think he had a bad camp. And at the moment, the hunger isn't there. I think he needs... Shawn Porter needs time away from the sport of boxing to see if he still has the hunger and the desire in it. That's what the stoppage was about. The stoppage wasn't about a fixed fight. I wish I could play this, but I don't want to get done. But look at this. Look, Terence Crawford insists he does not need Errol Spence. Terence Crawford now a free agent. Oh, this is interesting. Wow, look at this. Terence Crawford. Listen to this. Did he say this next to Bob Arum? This is unbelievable. Terence Crawford said on his future, the decision on his future is made. Bob couldn't secure me the Spence fight when I was with him. So how is he going to secure me the Spence fight when I'm not with him? I'm moving forward with my career. Wow. Wow, there you go. So Crawford just put Bob on blast. I want to play this video, but I don't want to get done. But that is it, isn't it? Well, that's it. Simple as that. I thought he might do I thought he might do a fight by fight. That's what I thought. I thought he might do a fight by fight. Arturo Venegas says Crawford to Frank Warren. Yeah, that's absolutely. Let's see Crawford and Archie Sharp in the fucking copper box. Absolutely. Listen, that's it then. I told you guys. I really do think this Spence fight will happen. It will happen under Al Heyman on PBC. And Crawford's pretty much just confirmed that. I'm shocked. I thought what Crawford would do is say, I'm going to be a free agent. I'll sign for the highest bid of fight by fight. But Crawford's just turned out and told Bob Arum straight up. That's it. You couldn't get me the big fights. It's over. Wow. To be fair, what can Bob Arum offer him? Bob's trying to offer him Josh Taylor. The numbers have gone down a little bit now. We've gone from 300 down to 200. But is there anybody still left on this planet who thinks that Crawford would lose a fight to Josh Taylor? Is there anybody here? Is there any living, breathing mammal on here who thinks Crawford would lose a boxing match with fucking Josh Taylor? Sorry, Crawford would fucking smoke Josh Taylor. And that's really the only big fight that Bob Arum can offer him, isn't it? What else can Bob Arum offer Terence Crawford? Josh Taylor. Come on, man. What the fuck? What, you guys think because I'm from Britain, I'm going to turn around and start telling you shit like, yeah, Josh Taylor's got a chance against Terence Crawford. Josh Taylor's going to get put on his ass against Crawford. Period. That's the end of it. So what? There's no need to make that fight. You know, there's no need to make that. Chris Perry says he said it as Bob was sitting right next to him. Fuck. Unbelievable. Shit. But recently, PBC and Top Rank have been working together, haven't they? Like with Fury and Wilder. And they've actually been doing... So what people don't understand was, right? When PBC started and Top Rank started working together and doing the joint Wilder and Fury pay-per-view and all that kind of stuff, the whole point of that was to work towards Crawford and Spence. That was the whole point of it. That's why Bob Arum went and met Al Heyman. Bob Arum's one of the very, very few people on this planet to ever meet Al Heyman in person. And when Bob Arum met Al Heyman in person, the premise of that was to work towards making a Spence and Crawford fight, but doing it as a cross-promotional show. That's why Wilder and Fury were working together. That's why Wilder and Fury they're kind of doing a joint pay-per-view. Yeah, Sad Ken's right. Josh Taylor would get fucking blitzed. I don't want to hear any more talk about that. Let me finish it up with this. Let's finish it up with this. Let's assume this fight doesn't happen. Let's assume Crawford and Spence does not happen next, right? I think there's a very, very good chance this fight will happen next because Errol Spence can't keep doing weight cuts. That's what people don't understand. He can't hang around much more welterweight. So it's really got to be now or never. You've seen the pictures of Errol Spence on the scales, right? Let me show you this. Look at this man's jawline coming through his face. Does this look like a man who could continue to keep doing 147? He's dead at the weight, yeah? So it's now or never, yeah? So I think the fight will happen. But if it doesn't happen, who would you like to see Terence Crawford fight next? Who can he fight next? Chris Perez says, I hear it was an A and B side issue with Arum Bob. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, A and B side, who would you say? I mean, I don't really like getting into this kind of talk, but since we've got a lot of people from abroad today, I'll engage at this talk. I think Spence is the B, is the A side. Surely, right? Spence is the A side. Spence did, I know a lot of them are Mikey Garcia fans, right? But Errol Spence did 50,000 turned up to go and watch him fight Mikey Garcia in Texas, right? They filled out quite a large portion of the Dallas Cowboys arena when he fought Mikey Garcia. And I think Errol Spence probably does bigger numbers on pay-per-view. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. But I would say the bigger draw is Errol Spence out of the two. That's my opinion. And I would say Errol Spence is the champion at welterweight. Until he's beaten, he is the champion at welterweight. Arturo Venegas says Ugas, but maybe not because the WBA is fucking Ugas around. Well, obviously we should see Ugas versus Spence in a unification. But the WBA are an absolute disgrace. So the WBA are what they are. And the WBA are a fucking joke. I mean, they pull belts out of their fucking ass, don't they? I mean, listen, as soon as Errol Spence unified with Ugas anyway and became undisputed, the WBA would put another fucking super regular fucking, you know, Wendy's double triple special, KFC double down, regular with the fries and a milkshake title out their ass. That's all they do to WBA. Everybody's got a WBA title. You know, as I keep saying, I'm one of the very, very few people on planet Earth who hasn't got some form of a WBA title. They give him away free with a Happy Meal and chips, don't they? WBA. So that's the problem, really. It should be Ugas next, innit, against Spence. Ugas against Spence, right? And the winner fights Crawford. And then that's it. And then we know who the best is. End of story. And then that's it. And then we can all fucking move on with our lives and get back to, you know, arguing over COVID and locking down and shit and arguing over that. You know, because it is time, listen, it is time for the next generation to come through. It is time for the Boots and for the Ortizes. It is time for guys who can actually make the weight to come through. Do you know what I mean? Sandor Martin, yeah, Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's a fucking clown. I'm not even gonna bring up Eddie Hearn's name. The guy's a fucking clown. CTV Jamaica says Spence can beat Crawford only in his mind and with his mouth. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Palmo Parade says Crawford needs to stay away from Eddie Hearn. Can you imagine if Crawford signed with Eddie Hearn? Jesus fucking Christ. Eddie Hearn and Crawford. Let me ask you guys something. Since we've got a lot of people from foreign countries in today, have any of you guys heard of somebody called Conor Benn? Just out of interest. Have any of you guys in America, we've got Vietnam, we've got everybody from Philly to Jersey to whatever. Have any of you guys heard about somebody called Conor Benn? I hope you haven't, but just out of interest. Eddie Hearn signing Crawford. Have any of you guys heard of Conor Benn at all? These Americans must be laughing and thinking, what is this guy talking about Conor Benn? That's how bad British boxing is, bro. Do you understand how bad British boxing is? This is what I'm saying, yeah? How bad British boxing is. Look at the fight we just watched tonight. Look at the level of boxing we just watched tonight between Crawford and Porter. And Porter wasn't even at his peak. And look at the level of boxing that we just watched tonight between Crawford and Porter, right? And now think about the shit that we're serving up in British boxing. We're talking about Conor Benn as a fucking global super. Did you see what we watched on ESPN tonight? And they're talking about Conor Benn is the next global superstar in boxing. Oh, Conor Benn needs a shot at Shawn Porter. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know how embarrassing it is for British boxing? It's embarrassing, isn't it? I'm almost ashamed to bring this man's name up, you know? I'm almost ashamed to bring this man's name up. Conor Benn. But it had to be done, innit? It had to be done. It makes you understand just how fucking clownish, yeah? How fucking clownish some of these dudes are on these boxing channels, yapping on about Conor Benn. Nobody even knows who Conor Benn is. None of these people in the chat. We got 161 people in the chat. Press 1 if you know who Conor Benn is. Press 1. I know I'm going to get in trouble for this. I'm just going to say now, Conor Benn. Press 1 if you know who Conor Benn is. Eddie Hearn talking about Conor Benn. Jesus fucking Christ. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Ultra, how about Avanesian getting his title shot? Avanesian's going to fight Ortiz, isn't he? And the winner's getting Errol Spence. It's a very, very tough fight for Avanesian. Very tough fight. But Avanesian is actual world level. The difference between Conor Benn and David Avanesian is, David Avanesian, okay, he fought a shot on old Shane Mosley, but David Avanesian was a world champion and he did beat Shane Mosley. So it is what it is. Look at this, look. Look at this, look. Seal the deal. Seal the deal says, I've heard the name, but never seen him fight. Listen, let me tell you something right now about British boxing. British boxing's in the gutter. Listen, let that be a wake-up call to all them British channels out there talking about Conor Benn. Stop embarrassing yourselves. All right? Let that be a lesson to all these stupid British YouTube channels talking about Conor Benn amongst the top welterweights, or talking about how Conor Benn would line up against. Stop embarrassing yourselves. Stop embarrassing yourselves. All right, let's move on. All right, I'll finish up. I'll give you my pound for pound top 5. Like I said before, I'm not going to give you an order, but we'll leave it at this. Thanks everybody for joining tonight. My 5 best fighters in the world, I would say, would be, not in any order, but in my opinion, I would go with, again, not in any order. My 5 would be, I'm going to type this in, Lomachenko, Canelo, even though I don't like Canelo, we know why. Usyk, who I'd probably be my number 1. I haven't, Inoue, you'd have to put Inoue in there, even though I'm not sure about the levels of competition. But you'd have to say Inoue because he's an absolutely concussive puncher. And I'm trying to think who the 5th would be. But those are the 4. Oh, well, you could say Crawford. I'm not, like I said before, I'm not the biggest Crawford fan ever. But you could say Crawford in there. But those are the 5 names that come to mind when I think about best fighters in the world at the minute. Right now, on skills. Loma, Canelo. I tell you what, I'm going to get called a fanboy. On skills, if you're going to say on, I'm not saying top 5, but I'm saying in a top 10 list, Tyson Fury would be in there as well. If you're talking about a top 10 list, that's based on skills. Forget all this talk about resume. I would say Fury would be in my top 10 because he's a 6'9" man who moves like a welterweight. And that's why I put him in there. Mike says Canelo at number 1, Usyk 2, Crawford 3, Inoue 5, and Teofimo. I am not a massive fan of Teofimo. And it is what it is. Okay, right. The numbers are dropping. Finally, the numbers are going down. So that means everybody is sick and tired of hearing my voice, which I can't blame you. Listen, we'll be back soon. For those of you who are new, listen, if you want to subscribe, feel free. I'm not hurting for subscribers. This particular channel has been up since September. So this particular channel has been up since September, and we're nearly on 1,000 subs. As you saw here tonight, we had about 300 people in, max, 7 in the morning UK time. Normally, we talk about UK boxing. So if you're from another country, this show probably isn't for you because we normally don't do these fights. But I tell you what, if you like a laugh, feel free to hit the subscribe button and feel free to come on board and have a chat. Normally, also, we have guests come on as well. We have a few guests come on and we have a few chats. So if you're interested in a bit of a laugh, feel free to subscribe. But if you don't, I can't blame you because, like I said before, we normally cover UK boxing. The joke that is UK boxing at the minute. Any final thoughts? TW, yeah, shout out to Omar again, man. Bud is a free agent. Shawn announced his retirement. There you go. It is what it is. Unbelievable. And by the way, don't forget to add Terence Crawford eviscerating Bob Arum. I can't believe he said that with Bob Arum sitting next to him. Absolutely terrible. Yeah, so there you go. Hit the subscribe button. And yeah. Refugio says, just missed the stream tuning in. Go and watch it back. See what you think. Great chime with the chat. Live from Chris, Umar Johnson. Listen, Chris. You need to ask him where the school's at. You know who this is, Chris. If you're from Philly, then you know who this is. Where's the HVAC at? Where's the school at? Peace out.